Forget everything you've seen in films about brave knights and beautiful princesses. Medieval life was filthy, utterly, eye-wateringly filthy. Imagine a world with no toilets, no soap, and no clue about germs. Those grand castle halls, covered in old food, animal droppings, and worse. Even kings and queens were just as grimy as peasants beneath their fancy clothes. Many believed being was bad for your health. A strong smell meant a strong person. If you time-traveled to meet a prince, you'd need a truckload of nose plugs. The past wasn't just a different country, it was a different smell entirely. So, toss out those storybooks of sparkling castles. We're about to uncover the dirty truth about medieval hygiene. Hold your breath, watch your step, and let's dive into the muck and mire of medieval life. It's going to be horrible. Welcome to Grimmel, a typical medieval town, though typical might be putting it kindly. Life here is a far cry from the romanticized images you might have of knights and fair maidens. Instead, it's a place where daily survival means navigating a world that's messy, noisy, and frankly a bit smelly. The streets themselves are open sewers, with dirty water and waste flowing right down the middle of the road. There's no underground plumbing, no neat gutters, just a constant stream of filth winding its way through the heart of town. Forget about sidewalks or clean cobblestones. Instead, you'll find muddy tracks, churned up by the wheels of heavy carts, the hooves of livestock, and the bare feet of townsfolk. Every step is a gamble. Will you land in a puddle, a pile of manure, or something even worse? For the children of Grimmel, this is just another playground. They run barefoot through the muck, squishing their toes into mud, animal droppings, and the occasional rotten vegetable. It's a sensory experience, one that's definitely not for the squeamish. The houses crowd together, their upper floors jutting out over the street below. This creates dark, narrow lanes where sunlight barely reaches and the air feels close and damp. The overhanging buildings make the streets even more claustrophobic, and sometimes you can barely see the sky. Need to empty a chamber pot? There's no indoor plumbing here. Just open your window, shout "Gardyloo" as a warning, and toss the contents into the street below. If you're lucky, no one's passing by at that moment. If not, well, let's just say you learn to keep your wits about you. The market square is a chaotic hub of activity. Butchers toss guts and bones straight onto the ground where hungry dogs and pigs roam freely, gobbling up whatever they can find. These animals are the town's unofficial cleanup crew, but they don't exactly leave things spotless. The air is thick with the stench of tanneries, forges, and unwashed bodies. Smoke from fires and the pungent smell of animal hides mix with the ever-present odor of waste, making every breath a challenge. If you ever visit Grimmel, you'll want to keep your eyes up to avoid falling debris, your nose pinched to block out the smells, and sturdy boots on your feet to survive the muck. It's not a place for the faint-hearted or the fashion-conscious, but for the people who live here, all this filth and chaos is just part of daily life. They move through the mud and mess with practiced ease, barely noticing the things that would make us gag. Medieval townsfolk are too busy working, trading, and surviving to worry about a little dirt, or even a chamber pot emptied overhead. Life is tough, and there's no time to fuss over cleanliness when there are mouths to feed and work to be done. So welcome to the real Middle Ages, a world where you truly have to mind your head and your feet every single day. Meet the Filths, a typical Grimmel family living in the heart of the medieval countryside. Their lives are a window into a world that feels almost unimaginable to us today, but for them, this was simply everyday reality. The entire family, parents, children, and sometimes even distant relatives, squeezed into a single, cramped room. The floor was nothing more than packed earth, often damp and cold, and the straw bedding was rarely changed, making it a haven for fleas, lice, and the occasional mouse scurrying by. Instead of cleaning out the old straw, the family would simply pile fresh straw on top, creating a thick, rotting layer that grew smellier with each passing week. The scent of decay was just another part of home life. Each morning, Bartholomew Filth would wake up, often to the clucking of a chicken perched on his bed. It wasn't unusual for the family to share their sleeping space with animals, chickens, goats, or even a pig, since their warmth was precious during cold nights, even if it meant waking up to droppings on the floor. Matilda, the youngest, was always losing her shoes, sometimes to the butcher's dog, sometimes to the mud outside. Her father would just shrug and tell her to go barefoot, as shoes were a luxury and feet were meant to be toughened by the earth. The cottage was never tidy. Possessions were scattered wherever they landed, and muddy footprints crisscrossed the floor. Cleaning was a daily battle, but it mostly meant sweeping dirt from one corner to another, never truly winning against the mess. As night fell, the family would gather around a smoky fire in the center of the room. Dinner was a simple affair, usually a thin, watery pottage made from whatever vegetables or grains they could find. They'd slurp it from wooden bowls, picking out bits of straw that had drifted in from the bedding. The only light came from the fire and a small window, really just a hole in the wall with a wooden shutter. The air was thick with smoke, making the room dim and hazy, and the smell of burning wood mixed with the odors of animals and unwashed bodies. Life in the Filth household was noisy, crowded, and incredibly smelly. The constant chatter of people, the clucking of chickens, and the occasional squeal of a pig created a symphony of chaos that never truly stopped. Hygiene, as we know it, was unheard of. The Filths had no idea about germs or bacteria. For them, this was just the way things were, normal, familiar, and oddly comforting. Despite the filth and the smells, the family found joy in small things, a shared meal, a warm fire, or a moment of laughter. It might have been a bit whiffy, but it was theirs, and that made all the difference. It's a world away from our clean, sanitized lives where we take running water, fresh sheets, and soap for granted. The contrast couldn't be starker. Welcome to medieval family living, a place where comfort was scarce but family was everything. After a day dodging poo and sharing your house with a pig, you'd think a bath would sound great. But in the Middle Ages, most people feared bathing. Water was thought to open pores and let in disease. Doctors warned that getting wet could kill you, so most avoided washing as much as possible. A full-body wash, maybe once a year. Clean meant a quick splash of cold water on your face and hands. Clothes were rarely washed, layers of grime were considered protection. The rich masked their stink with perfumes and pomanders, not soap. Ironically, the dirt they thought kept them healthy bred the fleas and lice that spread real disease. They tried to stay healthy by being as dirty as possible. Where did medieval people go to the loo? Anywhere they could. No private toilets, just buckets tossed into the street or public benches over pits or rivers. Castles had garderobes, stone seats over chutes that emptied straight into the moat. The moat became a giant open sewer, bad news for attackers and defenders alike. Garderobes were dangerous, people sometimes fell in, and there are tales of assassins climbing up the chute. Cleaning out the pits, done by gong farmers, was the worst job imaginable. Toilet paper? Forget it. Moss, leaves, hay, or a communal sponge on a stick. The wealthy used scraps of cloth, most used whatever was free. Human waste seeped into wells and rivers, spreading deadly diseases. The privy was a symbol of medieval filth and hidden danger. Sanitation was a disaster waiting to happen. For centuries, the streets of medieval Europe were caked in filth. Mud, animal waste, and rotting garbage piled up in the alleys, creating a breeding ground for disease. People lived side by side with their refuse, rarely questioning the dangers lurking in the muck. This neglect set the perfect stage for disaster, the arrival of the Black Death. In the mid-1300s, a mysterious and terrifying plague swept across Europe, leaving devastation in its wake. Within just a few years, the Black Death killed millions, wiping out nearly a third of the continent's population. No one was safe, rich or poor, young or old. People were desperate for answers. Some believed the plague was a punishment from God, while others blamed bad air or evil spirits. Fear and confusion spread almost as quickly as the disease itself. Brother Thomas, a monk chronicling the horror, wrote, "Swellings, black spots, fever, death within days. The healthy fall ill overnight and the sick perish before the sun sets again. We ring bells for the dead until our arms ache," he lamented as the tolling echoed through empty streets. The sound became a grim soundtrack to daily life, marking each new loss. Today we know the true cause, a deadly bacterium, Yersinia pestis, spread by fleas that infested rats. These rodents thrived in the filth of medieval towns, multiplying in the shadows and carrying death wherever they went. Rats scurried through straw-covered floors, hid in granaries, and even traveled on ships, spreading the plague from port to port. The medieval world, with its lack of cleanliness, was a paradise for disease. Overcrowded homes, open sewage, and poor hygiene meant the plague could spread like wildfire. Families lived packed together in tiny, dirty rooms, making it impossible to escape the invisible killer. Entire villages vanished almost overnight. Some cities lost half their people, leaving behind empty streets and hastily dug graves. The world felt as if it was ending. In panic, people fled their homes, locked their doors, and blamed everything but the real culprits, rats and fleas. Suspicion and fear tore communities apart. Desperate to protect themselves, villagers burned herbs and waved incense in the streets, hoping to drive away the bad air. But these efforts were useless against the true enemy. The Black Death was a brutal reminder. When people ignore hygiene, filth will always fight back. The cost of ignorance was measured in countless lives lost. Families mourned at gravesides, carrying loved ones through muddy streets. The price of not understanding cleanliness was heartbreak and tragedy on a massive scale. The world would never be the same. The Black Death changed history, forcing people to rethink how they lived and how they cleaned. It was a turning point, and the lessons learned would echo for centuries to come. After the Black Death, did people embrace cleanliness? Nope. Fear of bathing grew. Doctors blamed water for illness. A famous story told of a queen who died after a bath. Her doctors blamed the hot water, not her sickness. The tale spread. If a bath could kill a queen, what hope for commoners? Soap became the villain, and not washing was seen as wise. People took pride in how long they could go without bathing. Smelling clean was considered foolish. Of course, the queen likely died from germs, not her bath, but the story gave everyone an excuse to stay dirty. The great unwashed stayed that way, thanks to one unlucky, possibly clean queen. With no idea what caused disease, medieval cures got weird. Sick? You might swallow a frog, drink beetle potions, or wear smelly herbs. Plague doctors wore bird beak masks stuffed with spices hoping to filter out bad air. Their treatments, bloodletting, leeches, or strapping a plucked chicken to your plague sores. Unsurprisingly, these cures rarely worked. People were desperate, clinging to superstition and tradition. They prayed, went on pilgrimages, and tried anything to survive. No microscopes, no real medicine, just hope and a lot of poultry. It was a time of great faith and even greater foolishness. Medieval medicine was as bizarre as it was ineffective. So there you have it, the dirty truth about medieval hygiene. Filth was normal, cleanliness was feared, and people were walking breeding grounds for disease. They didn't know dirt was making them sick, and the results were catastrophic. It took centuries for science to reveal the truth about germs. Slowly, sanitation, clean water and soap became essentials. We learned that being clean keeps us alive, not just nice smelling. Next time you grumble about showers or hand washing, remember Grimmel and the Filth family? Be thankful for your toilet, hot water and soap. You live in a paradise of cleanliness a medieval king could only dream of. Living in the past was a very, very dirty business indeed.